Welcome to the Greatness Garage Podcast, the place where small businesses get big answers. I'm your host, Brad Borkhuis, founder of Epitome Coaching and Consulting, and this is the Greatness Garage. Welcome, everyone, back to the Greatness Garage. We're so excited to have you today. I am so blessed to have Jodi Scott here, the owner of Green Goo, right? Green Goo. Now, when you go to the website and check it out, you're going to see all of the products and the way in which there's a holistic, natural, organic way of processing products that are good for us and good for the earth. And so I love it. And Jodi, welcome to the Greatness Garage.
Oh, it's great to be here with you, Brad. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So tell everybody a little bit about the Green Goo and kind of your story. It seems fascinating.
It's been quite a ride, to say the least. But so my mom, sister, and I started Green Goo together almost 15 years ago. So
Wow.
my sister is an herbalist and a midwife, and I was pre-med, got my master's in health psychology, specialized in psychoneuroimmunology, and was training resident physicians on the biopsychosocial model, and it was in private practice. So what that means in a nutshell is, is very passionate about the mind-body relationship
Yeah.
and just improving healthcare rather than just prescribing, really leaning into who is the patient as a whole so we can have optimal outcomes. And what we observed was that, we were making really clean choices as it relates to our food and to our personal care. But when you opened up our first aid cabinet, we made all the exceptions.
Hmm.
Chemicals, one-time use, no sustainability. And we thought, why are we doing that? That's so interesting. And then we started asking around and we found out we weren't alone. The natural consumer was willing to abandon their natural ethos because they were told products like Neosporin and hydrocortisone were the only products that could get the job done. And
Yeah.
then what was really interesting to me was that the conventional consumer was like, I don't care about the ingredients. I just want something that works better. And
Yeah.
I find what is available over the counter not only doesn't work, but it's really inconvenient to have to like use something for 7 to 10 days, symptoms persist, go see your physician. And so we thought, wow, what if we can make a solution that is superior in efficacy and also plant-based with sustainability? And so Green Goo was born.
That's awesome. Well, and what I love is you looked at it from way of providing the solution. And it's interesting. There's a saying that if we turn over our right to think to an instant, like so, for example, Neosporin and they were thinking for us and creating saving money when we really what we wanted was efficacy, right? And so they said, no, 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 this is what you want. And then all of a sudden shoved us stuff that we actually didn't want. And you actually opened up and listened and said, no, no, what do you want? So well done. Well done. I love it. I love it.
Thank you. And we looked at, consumer behavior as well, because here they were purchasing these products that they wanted, specific symptom relief. And it was also
Hmm.
really interesting because when you think about when you go into an over-the-counter space, it is so overwhelming because it's one
Yeah.
product, one solution. And that was
Yeah.
another thing we really wanted to instill in Green Goo, which is clean out your cabinet. Let's declutter that. Let's have solutions that have multifunctionality that you can use year round and for the whole family. So a lot of our formulas are very versatile and can be used for a variety of different symptom relief.
Well, and the other thing, what I really, for myself, what I loved in reading in some of the marketing that you have there is a lot of the other solutions are fear-based. And yours is here's the benefits, here's what it does, not what, oh, it takes care of this problem, and I really love it because there's a way to which you can see the product supporting a lifestyle of healthiness versus fixing a sick problem type of thing. And so I loved so much of that. So I'm very,
I
very well done.
really, I really appreciate you shedding light to that.
Yeah.
That's nice. Thank you.
Yeah, well, and as we those of us who try to be in a healthier space, right? Like in that space where we try to use stuff that is organic or that is sustainable or that has that, we want to be in this area, but like we got to know like what are we doing? And so you're giving that little roadmap to say here's what it does. You can go, okay, that makes some sense. So I love it. Well, very
And
cool.
it's been really interesting too, because, you think about it, 15 years ago, people weren't using the word plant-based the way they are today.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so the first time I went to a national pharmacy buyer and I said, "Hey, I've got a plant-based Neosporin for you," he about fell out of his seat. He's like, "What does that even mean?"
Are you
And-
sending leaves through the mail?
right? And it was really interesting because people didn't understand what we were doing. So when we first started this, in essentially our kitchen, we are growing the herbs in our backyard. We've got bees. We're drying the herbs on old screen doors on our front porch. And then we turn our kitchen into a production facility where we're taking it through this infusion process. We yield high amounts of the medicinal properties from the plants. And then these custom oils go into the various formulas. And and by the way, our production got so nuts, we had to take our camping equipment and build an outdoor kitchen for us to actually cook our food because it was so nuts.
That
But the
becomes the least important, right? Like you're like,
right,
we'll push our own sustainability outside.
exactly. We'll eat there. Thank goodness it's not a rainy day today because there were a few of those. And that process is why Green Goo works. And
Mhm.
so, we're starting to scale, and it's like, how are we going to preserve the integrity of this? And it
Yeah.
actually took someone who was running a manufacturing facility whose son had eczema. He used our products and he reached out to us and was like, the world needs these products because
Mm.
this is the only thing that worked for my son over the counter for his eczema. And to this day, that's the formula that John Hopkins has been using in their scleroderma and skin condition department. So very cool.
Wow, very cool. Very.
And so he helped us set up a dedicated line with a dedicated team with a dedicated process. So to this day, we still bring the plants to our manufacturing facility, take it through that process, yield high amounts of that medicinal profile, and then put that in the various formulas. And so when you talk about plant-based solutions with folks, you're like, this is why it works and is very different than anything natural you may have had already because you're not getting that rich botanical profile. You're getting
Yep.
just some, plant byproducts that have maybe been exposed to high heat and the integrity of the plant was compromised. So you don't get that whole botanical profile.
That's so cool. Wow. Well, and you know what? I thank you guys for your journey because, like I said, giving people options that allow us to choose and see there's another way. I think that's a problem. I think we did get a little bit. I always believe stuff moves in pendulums, right? And you go back far enough and plant-based, everybody knew it, right? Exactly. So, but it's this pendulum that swings, and we got too myopic about the potential solutions. They got stuck in this chemically enhanced way that was like, wait, I think we missed something. So very cool.
And I do
Well,
think the
awesome. So,
industrial, oh,
oh,
you go ahead,
oh, you
please.
go right ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's interesting when you look at sort of the journey of when some of these byproducts and synthetics were introduced in really the Industrial Revolution, right? Because
Hmm.
all of a sudden we had this ability to mass produce and get products, consumer packaged goods to people. And so we didn't have the infrastructure we have today, the transportation and the technology. And so you did have to put these fillers in there because it could be years before it got to someone's door. In conjunction, people thought this notion of like more volume meant more value. And
Yeah.
so you put all these fillers in. And of course, today we have the science to know why we don't want the phthalates or the parabens or the petroleums, and we're also getting solutions and consumer packaged goods to people's homes much quicker.
You know what I love that you just did? Um, you did such a wonderful job of not beating up the establishment and really saying there's a beautiful reason. They did it. Like you look at a lot of the things when they initially did it, and we go, "Oh, that's not good for us." When they did it, they thought they were doing like what they knew at the time. They were doing good. It's just we've learned something new, and sometimes learning something new means remembering something very old, and that's okay. It still becomes new to what we're in the assessment of what we're doing right now. But you did such a beautiful way of going. Now that we've got this and we know this, and they did it for good reasons, but now we think there's a better way to do it. Let's do it now with the advancing technology, transportation logistics, all of that stuff. So well done. I love that. Well done. So
Thank you. And to your point, that's exactly, why it's important to have these conversations is so that we can share that there is an alternative solution because where we are today, it's kind of like, the giant boat, the Titanic, you can't turn it really quickly. And
Yeah.
so it really is individuals who vote and get to choose what becomes more readily available in the market.
Yeah.
And so this is that time.
Yeah. And as people begin to make that change on their own and vote with their dollar, the dollar will attract other people of it allowing that the opportunity space to grow too, right? Yeah. So very
Exactly.
cool. I love it. So as we do on the Greatness Garage, we have this set of kind of questions that can be interesting, fun, and hilarious, right? And so we love to see where this always goes. And the first question we always love to ask is, "I wish I woulda." And I wish I woulda is not saying that we would change anything, right? Because we became beautifully where we're at, when we're at, who we're at because of all of our experiences. But it also gives the listeners that ability to tap into going, you know what, here's a nugget that you might want to reflect, and this might help you spend more time someplace, spend less time, spend less, all that stuff that those of us who have walked the journey get to share a little bit of our scars and say you may want the same scar, but you may not, so so the first segment we always do is I wish I woulda, and Jodi, I will let you take it away.
Well, I wish I would have invested more into my own personal development and myself, not just going to
Mm.
the gym and working out, but more mental fitness to be an entrepreneur and find more joy because you kind of put that on the back burner. You go to the gym and you just keep pushing, pushing, pushing. And, resilience is you just keep going.
Mhm.
And, I've learned a lot and we'll get there in terms of how I landed here. But I really wish I had done that more.
Mhm. It's interesting with so many of the clients that I work with one on one and even in groups is they're entrepreneurial based, right? And part of it is you'll see this a little bit generationally as well sometimes, but so much we put so much value on grind, right?
Mhm.
We put so much value on that never giving up, pushing through everything, and the body, the mind, the soul is not meant to grind all the time. And it's funny, unfortunately, I get to clients a lot of times when something broke, right? Whether it be physically, mentally, relationships, emotion, something they pushed too long, too far, and that's what made them kind of go, Brad, I need your help. And so what a wonderful reflection. And again, it doesn't mean you're not going to do it without grind and taking care of your physicalness, but forgetting that gentleness and that mental space that we all also need to balance it out. We love to talk balance, right? But we tell us balance with more and more, right? Well, sometimes it's less and less.
And then you
So
can have both.
exactly, right? Let me ask this question. So when you look back at that, and and there probably was an innate, there's we always say there's kind of this voice that said it, but we kind of just said shh, shh, shh. What made it difficult for you to make that adjustment, or why do you think that you kind of focus more in this direction when you were younger versus the growth in this other space and area?
I just ignored it. It was the physical and emotional connection. It was a luxury. You're like,
Yeah.
that is not going to serve me or my team or my progress by spending more time with my mental fitness and emotional fitness, and instead you keep going forward. And that's just how I defined success with resilience. And now I understand resilience more as getting present. It is actually the ability to come back from a fight or flight moment. And that's what you want to invest in. That's resilience. Like that's the rubber band right there in terms of being able to actually
Yep.
take you through difficult times.
Yep, that emotional
For me,
elasticity, right? Yeah. Well, and
yes.
and I would say for a lot of us, I think that there's a really cool construct and a kind of a paradigm shift that exists. There's this saying that says, a lot of times what we say is once we have enough money, enough big enough, once we have enough, then we can do what we want and then we can be happy. And really, I try to teach the construct that says, wait a second. If you are in a place where you are being happy, You will do the things to be successfully in that happiness, and you will have everything you need and want. Right? And it's and then I hear that in what you're saying there, that reframing and that understanding that you can have it both. You're just pressing so far up to one valley that you're not going to be able to see it all. Yeah.
And just there's so much more you can appreciate in that moment because if you kind of put that deferred joy, you will have this when that happens. There's always going to be the next milestone. There's always going to be the next thing. And so you're never really present with
Yeah.
what is there in front of you. And, I could go on and on in terms of the amount of clarity and purpose and expansiveness that has come as a result of me redefining resilience. And
Hmm.
where when I was in that grip mode, it's always fight or flight and it's very narrow and there's a lot of pressure and like things are happening really fast and you're just kind of like deflecting. But when you
Yeah.
get present and you have more of that clarity, that expansiveness, it's almost like time slows down and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden like more innovation comes, more productivity. Like I'm actually accomplishing way more now
Yeah.
because I think I was wasting a lot of energy, kind of like that hamster wheel just
Yeah.
spinning.
Well, there's a cool thing that says sometimes like that our presence, when you take your present and you fill it with the past and the future, there's no space to creatively or grow in the present. And
Mm.
so I like you said it too. The more you become present, you go, the past was the past and the future will come, and I could deal with that as is. Um, there is more space for creativity, and it's funny. I'll even find this: people who say, "Well, I'm not creative." Once you get present, you find this ability and this kind of innateness that shows up for creativity, doesn't it?
Yeah, I love this quote by Rick Rubin, and I'll butcher it, but this is it and sort of encapsulated where he's like, it's not being creative that makes him successful. It's being in the state in which creativity happens. And I was like, oh, that's powerful. That's good.
Yeah, yeah. And thank you for quoting Rick Rubin. Like, what a musical math. Like, the people who
Right?
don't know him, you got to look him up. The number of artists that he has worked with, like, just blows your mind.
It's incredible. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
magical.
And he will, I'll tell you this right now, he will not be who you think you're going to see on the video.
So true.
Yeah, what a cool one. Yeah. And you're right. And it's interesting too, when you look at like, I call it the rule of attraction, not necessarily the law of attraction. So the law of attraction maybe goes in a couple places I don't quite follow, but in the rule of attraction, the you tend to matriculate towards more of the people that you are being like. And so as you become and allow creativity to speak into that place, you collect yourself towards more people that are creative and that have spurned even more ideas and stuff like that. So let me
And the
ask this
halo
question.
effect too, like the being
Yeah.
in that
Yep.
state, how that happens. I mean, my daughter the other day, she's like, Mom, I had the weirdest thing that happened at school today. And I'm like, what's that? And she's like, my teacher pulled me aside and was like, I need to talk to you about, you taking your test. And she's like, oh no, what happened? And he's like, I really want to acknowledge and applaud you for how you approach taking tests. I watched you rub your fingertips together, take a couple deep breaths, and
Yeah.
then the focus that you had as you were going through the test and you answered the things that you knew immediately, then came back very thoughtfully working through the ones that were more challenging. And he's like, you were so present. And
Yeah.
my daughter's like, he used your words, Mom. And I was like, there you go. You're doing
Yeah.
it.
And I will say this, right? My guess is, as a parent, that had to have felt so good.
Oh, you thought one of those moments where you're like, there's few things, like for me, that was like the most powerful gift and it's
Yeah.
priceless. And if I can give her that in this lifetime, then
Oh,
oh,
right?
I will be
Yeah.
so forever grateful.
I've got two daughters, so I'm hearing this, all of this, right? Um, and it's interesting. One of the things I explain to, like, with a lot of clients that I work with, we talk about how I say, you got to understand, we're all children. And once you look at through that lens, we really have a different way of interacting and being with people, right? And one of the things I always say is, like, when you think about your kids, they may not do anything that you say, but they will very likely do what you do. And
Right.
so I think that you've modeled in a great way that she saw it and said, okay, that makes some sense. So very cool. Very
And it makes
cool.
the hard times
Congratulations.
all that more worth it, right? Because you're like, okay, that was worth the bumps and bruises.
Oh, we've got 5 and 7, so I'm just buckling up right now.
There you go.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, so let me ask this question. When did you start, because a lot of times these changes, we start kind of doing some reading, we doing some research, and we doing some exploring, we do some traveling, whatever that we kind of do something. At what point did you see that starting to open up for you and kind of go, oh, how did that transition from like I love how you said redefining resiliency. How did that kind of that journey look for you?
Well, it's interesting because I went to Peru on this trip and
Yeah.
had this like beautiful time, and I was like with the ancient ruins and beautiful culture and having this deeper connection with the plants that are in our products. And, it was one of those moments where I felt the stillness and the presence. And I was like, I need to feel more like this. And then I just
Yeah.
went back to the grind, came back, forgot about it, and went back to the grind.
Yes,
Like
yes, yep,
years and years later.
yep.
And we built this company. I mean, we grew to 150,000 point distribution in less than 5 years. And we went through, and the pandemic was really hard for us because we were like
Yeah.
95 plus percent retail. And all
Oh,
of a sudden, no one's in retail because if you have poison ivy, you go to the local pharmacy. And she had to
oh,
pivot very quickly, and it was nuts. I mean, we were shipping our family members to like 4 or 5 in the morning. We had 20 different shipping locations. The whole world's trying to ship at this time. Getting packaging was very difficult to put product in, and we made it through, and we
mhm.
didn't have to terminate a single employee, and I was so grateful.
Very cool.
But I
Yeah.
recognized very quickly that we couldn't weather the storm the same way the bigger companies could. And we were competing against the biggest companies in the world.
Yep.
And so we knew we had to get some financial support. And so, in this process, we found a group that complemented our ethos, and we almost worked with other more traditional chemical laden brands that wanted a natural bolt on, but it just felt, disingenuous. And so
Yep. Yep.
on paper, check marks, all things look good. And unfortunately, one of their founders faced major legal and financial issues, and ultimately it tarnished the brand's reputation and financing. And we had less than 24 hours to terminate our entire team, including my mom and sister, including my husband, my brother-in-law, employee
Oh,
number one, best friends from college who had changed their careers.
yeah.
And I mean, the whole thing fell apart. Production stopped. We saw our product just slowly coming off the shelves, and we were like devastated and devastated for the loss of our team and our income. And,
Hmm.
at this time, it's 12 years of our time and investments we had personally made into it. And, and our purpose, like the
Yep.
weight that was on us. And this is where you get into like regret, shame,
Mhm.
depression, anxiety. I mean, you were just like overwhelmed. And
Yeah.
I had just hired like a coach mentor, maybe, I don't know, less than 6 months prior to that. Cause I had heard of all
Hmm.
these like CEOs and they've got like coaches. And I thought, well, that'll be
Yep.
fun. And so we were
Yeah.
very new in our relationship. And I had to call him and tell him, like, hey, Monday at 5, I'm not going to be there because I can't pay you. And
Yeah.
here's what happened. And he was like, you show up Monday at 5, I'll be there every Monday
Mm.
at 5. And of course,
Yeah.
that sounded great. I really appreciated it. But when you are in that state,
Mm.
someone helping you doesn't like it doesn't move the needle, right?
Yeah.
You are just done.
Yeah.
And, I moved through the weekend and I just kind of felt guilty. And I was like, okay, I'm going to show up to this call because he's really nice. And that was nice
Yep.
of him. But I struggled with showing up to that call.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll
And
bet.
yeah. And he starts the conversation with like, okay, we're starting your mental fitness boot camp. And I'm like, what? And he's like, we're setting the alarm every three
Yeah.
hours. And every 3 hours, you're going to do a 30-minute to 2-minute presence exercise. And I was like, what does that even mean? And he's like, and he started outlining them for me, like, you're going to feel your feet and you're going to walk and you're going to feel that motion and you're just going to feel that motion for that 30 seconds or 2 minutes.
Yep.
You're going to go listen to the birds. You're going to
Yep.
watch that horizon. You're going to get your breath. And I'm like, I can't even process
Mhm.
this. And he's like, just do the work. Just
Yep.
1 foot forward, Jody. And
Yep.
so I started doing that. And then all of a sudden, I felt this like, and I'm going to call it a muscle because I don't know what else to
Mhm.
call it,
Mhm. Mhm. Well,
felt
yep.
this muscle strengthen. And he's like, we're
Yep.
going to get you fit and you're going to be able to do this. And in that process is when we were able to, like, one day I was sitting there with my mom and sister, and, we're like checking each other's inventory because we're about to run out of our own personal stash of Green Goo, and
Mhm.
we
Yep.
can't live without it. So we're like, are we gonna have to start making this in our kitchen again? And then customers are calling and, like, they can't get it. And my son's a paraplegic. This is the only thing that works. My mother's a diabetic. This is the only thing that works. And we're sitting there going like, hey, I'll trade you 2 lip balms for your repair, like, and so being in building that mental fitness gave me the
Mm.
moment of like, let's buy this company back. Like, let's
Mhm.
do this.
Yep.
Along with, I mean, we had nothing. I mean, we lost everything in this. And it was like,
Yep.
how are we going to do this? And so it very much wasn't like, can we do this? It was, how are we going to do this?
Yep. Yep.
And just kept doing my mental fitness and pushing through, and that for me was just the paradigm shift where all of a sudden I am not doing, I am being, and then in that I am like doing so much more and moving
Yep.
things in ways I never thought I could move. And it took us
Yep.
18 months, but we got it back.
Yeah. And wow. I just want everybody to sit in that and listen. Remember when I mentioned the Be-Do thing? That's her lived it. Like you lived that experience. You lived exactly what that, and a bit of of a forced shift, right? And it's interesting. I was on a podcast one time, and they were interviewing. They were asking about my processes and stuff like that, and they asked, "Does somebody have to go through something seismic for that type of change to happen?" And I said, they don't have to, but it helps get stuff going. And there's a beauty when all the apples get thrown in the air. You don't have to. You can reset them. However, like everything becomes impossible, but then all of a sudden everything becomes possible. It's if everything has a 0% chance, well then everything's got an equal chance. Try everything. And that's so cool. Oh,
And in that moment, though, I just think about where I was in my like headspace, and without having started that process of building that muscle, I'm not
mm,
sure, I'm fairly confident that I would
yeah,
have not had the the ability to do it because
yeah,
the whole world's falling apart behind you. You can't pay your bills. My daughter's like, "Why is there garbage at the front door?" I'm like, "Oh, we had to skip the garbage this week." Like,
yeah,
and then you can't do at the same rate that an entrepreneurial, mindset does because there
yeah.
isn't anything to do. So you
Ew.
just have to kind of keep being and investing. And you can tip yourself over, and all of a sudden you can get into the past where it's all the regret and the shame and the fear and the fear in the future. And it's like all you can do is stay in that moment to keep having the clarity and the expansiveness to get it done, and don't worry about what's happening tomorrow. I mean, obviously you've got things in your peripheral. You're not like ignoring
Sure.
it by any sense
Yep,
of
you're
it.
not ignorant to it, but yeah, yeah, you're not letting it overwhelm you either. Yeah.
Yeah, you're
So
just not
one
letting
thing
it
I'd love because I
hijack
think
you.
the listeners would really benefit from this. When you even maybe start with how you do it now, and even maybe back then if you can kind of remember, but when that fear and that scared that always it's gonna come, right? It just shows up as a feeling, right? As an emotion that shows up. How did you get yourself to recognize it and then go, oh, this is triggering, this is whatever, this is showing up for me, and then allow yourself to kind of dissipate it off. What did that look like for you?
Well, there's a number of things that I would engage in throughout the day. I mean, even
Hmm.
cold plunge, like this was a great one. You know, I live in this little river town. It's in the middle of the winter. I was a competitive swimmer and I cannot stand cold water. Like when they would put us out borderline winter, we would get out of our indoor pool and put us outdoor and there's like ice crystals on the pool. And I don't know if it was like a economic issue and they just had to get us outdoors because it was cheaper and it was miserable. So like
No.
I have an aversion to cold water. It's not like 95. I'm not getting in it. And so um and I'm just like hungry at this moment for like anything that I can latch on to that is attainable, like because I
Yeah.
don't have an income and I can't just go and invest in this. It needs to be equitable, which I really appreciate about what I learned through this is all equitable. Anybody can
Hmm.
do this. And
Yeah.
so I'm like walking past the river and it's like covered in snow. And I tell my husband, I'm like, I'm going in there. He's like, you're doing what? And I'm like, I'm going in. Like I have heard that this can help and I'm going in. And taking those little reps that I was doing with my mentor and bringing that into a more challenging environment
Yep.
allowed me to feel in my body what it felt like. And you would do this a number of times. Some days it would be better than others. I mean, it always sucked. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of like some days you felt like
Let's
you had
not
the
lie, right? Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
the mental acumen for the day to take
Yeah.
you through that, like your body is reacting and you're bringing it back to its
Yeah.
center. Like you are going to be okay. Sometimes it was deep breaths. Sometimes it was like following a bird that was flying by or looking at a cloud, and just like locked in to
Yeah.
that. And like as the moments are flooding in, and I'd have to do this in the middle of the night because I would wake up in the middle of the night and just like
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, okay, I'm going to focus on my breath and I'm just going to focus that thought. I'm going to let it come in. I'm going to let it go out. And there's something they call labeling where like you let
Yes.
it come
Yep.
in and you label it and you let it go out. And so,
Yep.
doing that more and more allowed me to again just build that muscle and get to a place where now I can recognize it. Like I'm doing stuff now throughout the day as a way to like maintain my mental hygiene, right? The same way you go to
Hmm.
the gym, you got to continue to keep this muscle worked. But you're not going to just not react, right? We're humans. We need to
Right.
feel those emotions. It's
Yep.
important to. It's just don't leave your hand on the hot stove, right? So,
Well said. Yeah.
um,
Well said. Yep. Yep.
yeah, so it's very much feeling it and then bringing yourself back to that moment. And whether you have to like do a nervous system exercise that gets you there. And you can feel it in your body where when you're in that state of fight or flight and resilience is grit, you're literally ignoring that feeling, right? You're
Hmm.
just like in it
Hmm.
all the time and you're staying in it all the time. And then you get into that like adrenal overdrive and you're like, you're constantly tired because your body's exhausted, but the brain just keeps going. So it's almost like this like reversal partnership.
Right. Well, and it's such a beautiful way, and with cold plunging and a lot of that strong physical stimulation activity, it brings the presence in to remind you that there's a physical connection to it, and also like you said, um, it makes very palpable and real. This too shall pass. Like you got to realize, like, will I? There is points when you're in that thing going, I could hyperventilate here and not make it out of this water. Like I could, and then and it's almost that. And this is what they call feeling alive. That's why that shows up is that you get that physical connection to the stimuli in your body. You really feel it, and you get to go, oh, this is how I process it through. Because when it becomes numb outside and then numb inside, your body doesn't know how to process that, and it gets disconnected, doesn't it? Very
It does.
cool.
And I feel like much of my earlier entrepreneurial journey was feeling numb because of
Yeah.
that, and
Yeah.
now I have so much more gratitude for having our company back. And I think about not treasuring those moments more. So like the other day we had the whole family doing a pack out. And I mean, like my mom, my dad, my
That's
sister, my
awesome.
brother-in-law. It was like such a fun day. And it was on a Saturday, it was on a weekend.
Yep.
And I just like drank it up. Like I was like,
Yep.
just take this moment and appreciate it because this too soon shall pass, like the good moments. And then what that does physiologically, I mean, it's going to have a positive impact on you physiologically. Your cortisol is going to
Yep.
drop, your immune system's going to like, hey, I'm in a good place. And then that's going to get, again, give you clarity and,
Yep.
allow you to continue to make good decisions and just a joy. And I love what you just said, just in terms of feeling fully alive. Because my wish, is that we give people the tools so that they can show
Mhm.
up fully alive and really just have more joy and success,
Yeah.
as a result.
Well, and I think too, like even just as I was kind of reading through some of your products and some of the stuff that we've used, is that it's not about numbing you from the pain or the symptom. Like it's not symptom. It's about going back to the core and going to the source and retooling or giving it what it needs. Right. A lot of times in a lot of these things where we get sick or pain or stuff like that, there's stuff that is missing, not stuff that we got to block. And so understanding that holistic approach is pretty cool that you guys do that. So, no.
It's really interesting how our Green Goo journey really mirrors the products themselves. And, a perfect example is we have Jane Doe number one, who was pulled from the World Trade Center, who sustained horrible injuries and became addicted to opioids. And
Hmm.
our topical analgesic was the only product that worked for her as she was tapering down. And,
Wow.
her doctor was like, it almost goes against the pain feedback loop. And yet this
Mhm.
is the thing that's working for you, and for me, coming from a background in psychoneuroimmunology, and there's just so much more data now to support that our skin is not just this large organ, or the largest organ. It is rich in neurotransmitters and it is
Yep.
very connected to our nervous system and our immune system and therefore our mindset. And so when you have inflammation, how do you feel? You don't have clarity. You're
Yep.
uncomfortable. You're irritable. We see the physiological changes. And here we can give our body like nutrient rich plants that really
Hmm.
complement the system, elevate the system in a positive way. We're not introducing, endocrine disruptors and other things that are making the body work harder.
Yep.
And
Yep.
there's something to be said. Like I will do this thing where I butter up and Sanctuary Sunday, butter up, whether it's the pain relief or my repair that's really hydrating, and put my bathrobe on and spend 30 minutes while my skin is just soaking it up and read or sit outside on the porch, have tea. You're also having
Yep.
like a really intentional moment because you're giving your skin time to soak it up.
Yep. Yep.
And then I sleep better. The rest
Yep.
of my day is better. And so it's just kind of it's this interesting, irony in terms of what we are building
Yep.
and sharing and what we've gone through ourselves as well.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting. Yeah, isn't it funny how you have influenced the product that has influenced you, that has influenced the journey that is. Well, and what I really like, and one of the things that I teach is what's called the alignment method. And I want people to kind of listen. This is a good example of a company in alignment. So what happening is that the products that they do, they live in alignment with the way that they live and the way that they want to be. And as they find themselves stepping away, whether it's their products to remind them or they remind the products that bring it back to really understanding that alignment with what is the purpose? Why are we here? And so knowing that really solidly like this typically produces a company that performs very well because there's no real question about like why are we here? Oh no, we know, right? So very
That's
cool.
beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That's very
Yeah,
cool.
well, it's thank you for living that in the world because it really people to see that and this is why I love doing this podcast is that this is about other people saying, oh, that's what that looks like, or that's possible, or that's something I can do as well. Because this stuff, one thing to remember, I think for everyone to do, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Jody, but this starts off in small, like you were mentioning 30 seconds, but this starts off in small commitments of time. It's the consistency, not the amplitude that is important. It's really about being it and saying, I'm not gonna diet. I'm gonna live this life. So I'm gonna commit to this being the way, So would
Oh,
that
you
be fair
nailed
to?
it.
Okay.
Yes,
Now,
and that's
now,
what was so intimidating for me as well, because I always thought, okay, if I don't meditate for 2 hours, I'm not going to get the benefits that everyone talks about. And to your point, it's just that consistency and those micro moments that build
yep.
up that really do make the difference. And the science supports it.
Yep. Well, it's funny. It's funny you say that. So people ask me, so how do you meditate? And I go, I sit out back and I stare at the pool water, like because they got the filter waterfall, right? And I
Yeah.
just stare at it. What are you thinking about? I don't know. And there's a part of checking out in that way. And there's times where people think that they are um, taking a break, staring at their phone because their
Hmm.
mind is checking out a bit. The problem is there's not a natural stimuli. There's not an appreciation of beauty. There's not that opportunity to enjoy self-care that I'm doing this for me. There's almost this self-masochism of like, oh, I got to look at this stuff and then it just makes you more worried about things or anxious and
It does the exact opposite, and the
yep,
science supports that too. Like
yep.
it has, dopamine starts to conflict, and all of a sudden the imposter syndrome shows up, and you're not worthy, and you're not doing. I mean, it's so interesting, and the difference is set the phone down and go have that moment where you actually
Yep.
physiologically recharge. And my daughter the other day, it was really cute because she's like, "Okay, mom, I gotta tell you, I had a really good day today." And I was like, "What's up?" She's like, "I decided not to start my day with my phone." And I
Oh,
put it in the closet. I got ready for the day. And she was like, and then, went to school. And she's like, I actually felt the difference. I felt
yeah.
what it was like to not wake up because she was the one who told me this. She goes, "Do you know that when you turn on your phone in the morning and you scroll, you deplete your day's worth
Mm.
of dopamine or
Yep.
something like that?" I was
Hmm.
like, "That is so interesting." She goes, "Yeah, in the first 5 minutes, we're all losing it and we're just dumping it." And she's like, "And I felt amazing today." I was like, "Thank you for the tip. That's great."
Oh. And
So
sometimes we have to hear that pure wisdom it's interesting like when I work with a lot of chiropractors and one of the beautiful things with chiropractors is that in the medical system a lot of times you're told to go to the doctor, right? You're referred to things like that, right? But in chiropractor it has to be so almost not exclusive but experiential. Like why do you keep going back? Because it worked. And so it was beautiful that she did it and she's now committing it to it or whatever because it worked. And it's just in the beauty that that exists, right? So yeah, I will say this. I am so appreciative of AI videos right now because they're so dumb that I've gotten to the point where I don't even want to watch any
right.
scrolling because you're like, it's all fake. I don't want to see any of it. It's all fake.
You're like, "Thank you very much. Thank you
Yeah,
very
it
much."
got me to check out completely. Like, no, I'm done. Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. And I'll
No.
share this, what comes up for me in this moment is I didn't realize the power of the word avoid. So when we talk about like our holistic journey and how we can optimize and find more joy, oftentimes you just think of all the things that you need to do.
Mhm.
And there is
Mhm.
some value in just the micro moments of avoiding what doesn't serve you, whether it is, food or a moment, a person, a thing, an
Yep.
activity. And just those little things throughout the day, if you avoid what doesn't serve you, that might, you know, give you greater value than trying to do all the things that you think you need to do, to get done.
Great point. It's interesting you say that. When I come in and I'm working with a leader who is just whew, feeling it, right? Just stressed to the eye, and they're like going, "What do I got to do?" The first thing I always start them with is a stop doing list.
Mm,
Go through and articulate that stuff that you need to do or you could or should do, like that stop doing list. What are you going to stop doing? And create some space to then sit, be creative, right? And let the things that you think that you should do, because now you've got space to do that, right? And
right.
it's such a powerful thing to not do things versus all these things we are putting into it. So
And it can be
great insight.
overwhelming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
cool.
that. The not to do list. I'm going to remember that.
Yep,
That's
yep.
going
The
to be a
stop
great one
and
with my teenager too. When they get into that moment, that's going to be a great tool.
absolutely. And so the great, especially with teenagers, because they when you add as much hormones as they're experiencing, stuff is coming at them so fast. And so it's not about trying to do more because you just will not keep to do more in front of it. It's about how do you functionally slow it down? How do you sit there and go, okay, look at stop doing this, stop, back away from this, or mitigate this thinking, and then kind of go, okay, here's what we can do, And so the
That's
teenagers,
cool.
oh,
Thank you.
beautiful
I
space,
love having
beautiful
conversations like
lab
these.
for that, isn't it?
It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. Oh,
That's when
that's
you'll actually
awesome.
have the teenage eyes like locked in for a minute instead of the glazed
Yep.
over of like, oh my gosh, please, no more. No more.
Well, and it's funny. I love the good Lord has such humor because I grew up with all brothers, right? And I coached high school football players, and it's beautiful because you talk about that part where I just chuckle because they weren't my kids, right? So I could just laugh at going, this kid's doing something dumb or something this. I would just be able to chuckle about it, and the good Lord thought he was going to give me. So now I get all girls. So I have all
That's
girls. So I'm
great.
relearning all of this, kind of going like, I don't know if is this okay.
Right. Oh, that's beautiful.
So, yep. So it is. It's a beautiful experience. So, to say the least.
Keeps us
Oh,
smiling.
so I'm going to go in. There's a next segment we have, but we have so much of it that existed already. So you may have already covered. But the next segment that we have is you aren't going to believe this. And I go, there's so much part of your transitional business story that I couldn't believe it is amazing anyway. But is there one that came up when we kind of set the kind of the question of it that like, you're not going to believe this story that jumped up for you?
I think when I was thinking about this question, you're not going to leave this was really just when we had to fire our team in less than 24 hours. I mean, that was just the
Yeah,
the holy moly, is this really happening?
yeah,
Like we all were just in disbelief and shock after everything that we had been building.
yeah,
And yeah, you just, deer in headlights. That was
yeah.
like, that was it. Yeah.
That paralysis that well
Yes,
and
paralysis. Yes.
you talk about like the one the beautiful unfortunate explanation I love of it is torpedoes because they're under the water, you don't see them, and the amount of damage instantly is catastrophic. And and there's this unique kind of correlation to the example that says I don't know how much time you have before you drown completely, but it ain't long and you better figure it out. Like, you don't know how much time you have. You don't really, like, there's no solid ground to stand on at all, is there?
No, that drowning is so real. And you're just like in the doggy paddle and you don't see anywhere where you're going to have
Oh,
like, like there's
yeah.
no land anywhere. There's no,
At what
there's
point,
no floaty device.
oh, and I
Yeah.
want I want Greatness Garagers, I want you to hear this because this is a real thing that you may have experienced or will experience in this stuff is that you are doggy paddling and you don't know when is it time to give up or is it time to fight for like it's so difficult to understand is it wiser to give up on this and was it the Titanic and give the door to someone else to or is it like what it because we are as entrepreneurs and leaders a lot of times we are willing to sacrifice ourselves but
Mhm.
if you're do it too early, you were the one that was creating the way to save it too. So it's like it's such a it's beautifully devastating,
Beautifully
you know?
devastating.
And
Yeah.
you
I'm
just
like,
sit there and yeah. And it's funny, like there's something this that there isn't like in World War One they talked about it the 1,000 yard stare, right? That shell shocked. And they talk about this. And I have been there at times where you just sit there and you're just into nothingness and you just don't know. Like, so what do you think? I, I don't know. Like the words can't even come out. And it's interesting at those times. I think for myself, as would be have to remind is when somebody comes up, reach out to grab on them, touch them at least, like at least
yes.
make the connection to bring yourself back to reality because in that shell shock state, you can't navigate yourself out it.
And just that notion of like, you can, whatever that saying is, can't make a horse drink the water,
You can
you
take a horse to
know?
water, but you can't make them
Can't
drink.
make,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
And like that's how it felt when my mentor was like, "Hey, I'll see you Monday at 5 o'clock," because I was still in that like I don't know what to do here. And I
Yeah.
think too, like you said the word, do I give up or do I keep going? And I remember feeling that dichotomy,
Mhm.
and both felt so huge. Neither
Yep.
was what I could grab onto.
Yep.
And like just by feeling alive again for a moment, and like not worrying about whether I was going to give up or whether I was going to keep going, and just really just kind of like getting back in my body and getting
Yep.
more clarity. And then just being like, okay, I'm going to take this one step at a time. Now, don't get me wrong. There were moments where like, oh, my sweet nephew, like he was adopted from Ethiopia when he was 12 and lived what a what a wild life, bless his heart.
Yeah.
And he moved in with us when he was about 17. And one of his strengths is that, when he was trying to find like food, he never knew if someone was going to hurt him or help him. So his like emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
like like he is so aware there, like so aware to the point where it frustrates him, right? So he's learning to
Oh,
work with
right.
that
Yeah.
because he had to develop that skill so much, and yet he's still learning like English and all of these other skill sets that come at a strength for other people. So, I'm always working with him to say, okay, how can we help you, utilize your superpower? But he
Yeah.
comes in and I'm like at my desk, I'm in tears. I'm thinking, what am I still doing? What is this? And I'm having that breaking moment, and he comes up to me and he's like, you got to Mayweather this. And I'm like, what? And he's like, you don't know who Mayweather is? And I'm like, no, I don't like what philosophy is this? And so he pulls up YouTube and he pulls up a boxer. And I'm like,
Yep.
what? And he's like, I want you to watch him. And he's like, and watch him carefully. And he's like, notice how in his body and how in the moment he is. And he's like, and he's just taking a couple hits and it's okay. He's not
Yep.
letting those hits wipe him out. And he's like, but he is waiting for the moment. And then he's going to come in and he's going to Mayweather his ass. And he's
Yep.
like, get in there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, just study him. He's like,
Yep.
I feel like you may find this useful, and it was just so funny.
That's
And
so
it's
cool.
I'm
Yeah.
in bed that night watching boxing videos, and my husband's like, "What are
Money
you
Mayweather.
doing?" And he was very present. Like there were components of
Yep.
that. We were like, I understand what he was trying to
Yep.
share, that wisdom, that it's okay
Yep.
to get beat up a little bit.
Yep.
Just be in your body, work through it, be very present, very appreciative of that moment, and you will figure out what to do next.
Well said. Well, and so one of the things that is you speaking to that, there's this heart head balance that we all kind of
Mhm.
go through. And it's interesting as your heart, and that's going to come be emotions and stuff like that. If that gets too high, it almost shuts down your ability to logically think, right? And so sometimes you got to kind of put something in there to kind of bring it back more into balance. And just the opposite, if you're really overly analytical, and I can get here, you forget the heart, and it's like, oh no, okay, I gotta. How do those numbers feel when they're? Oh, okay, okay. And so it kind of bringing that back into that
I love
perspective.
that.
And it's interesting how you said that. I really love this. One of the things that I'll say is when somebody says, "Hey, we have a problem," and I'm like, "Oh, great, great. What do you mean? Once we have a problem defined, now we can just solve it. But
Right.
until the problem's defined, we've got this cloud of gas that is killing us, And so there's an excitement and a beauty in the fact that we can go, oh, shit's gone wrong. Oh, good. Now we can
Yeah.
solve it.
And it's happening for you. But I think,
Yep.
without doing a little bit of that like muscle work, it's really hard to be into a state of like, this is not happening to me. This is happening for me. And when it's happening
Ooh.
for you, then to your point, you're like, great, we got a problem. Let's do it.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, but it's real easy to kind of get below the line and be a victim of something. And when you do that, it's really hard to be innovative and creative and move through it in a way that really even physiologically serves you.
I want everybody to pause, rewind, listen to that again. Because that was beautiful. Like understanding, and I love the way that you said that that as a victim, right? We love to throw, but it's a line. It's not this like all of a sudden you are a victim or you're not, right? It's not that we're nobody wants to be, but there's times we get into that. And it's a slippery kind of like where this is and right. And just being the humanity that you brought to that as an experience versus a judgment. Well done.
Mm,
Well done. That's
thank
beautiful.
you.
That's awesome. So when we look through the alignment, one of the things is what we call aligned language. And aligned language speaks to quotes. It could be words you use of guidance. It could be mantras you have. It could be stuff that kind of keeps you on. I'm actually right now. I'm so excited to hear what you got here because there's so much good nuggets that I've heard that people could use in the aligned language throughout our conversation already today. What showed up for you when that question came?
Mm. For me, I keep coming back to you have everything you need in you, with you.
Hmm.
And it's just about getting present in that moment and spending some time to access it.
That is, oh, and there's such a beautiful empowerment in what you just said. Like you've got it. You've got it. You know you are complete and you're whole. And one of my favorite prayers is, "Dear Lord, I am broken and I'm okay." Like it, all those beautiful broken pieces. I am here with everything I needed to be broken, everything that needed to be here, so that I can take that next step. And from that, what's really cool there is that there's at least what I'm hearing is this appreciation for this rugged experience that we get through that gets us to where we're at sometimes, but then this beautiful, just powerful appreciation for thank God it's brought me here. Like thank God I've had all those experiences, those ups, those downs, those challenges, those lessons, those things that have gotten me here because I got this. That's pretty cool.
Well, it's interesting. I was at this conscious capitalism like leadership retreat for a couple of days, and there various people are giving you different like hacks. How to be more conscious, how to do this, and the very last speaker really kind of did something powerful for me and bringing it together, and it kind of reminds me of sharing that with you in this moment, which is he's like, okay, it's great. Everyone gave you all these hacks and so forth. He was like, but if there's one way for me to put words around this, the gift is living in a state of prayer. And if you can stay in that state of prayer, that's presence. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, that's cool. And then you can feel it in your body.
Yep.
And then all of a
Yep.
sudden, it all felt connected to me in this like beautiful spiritual way. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
And the journey in business is that, right? It's in this space and it's there's these kind of these moments where we regret not having been in that more of that presence back then because what a cool ride it would have been had we been able to take all of this knowledge all the way through our experience so far. But you need to go through some of the scars to be able to go to like, oh, that's what's important, and I think I've seen our experience as business owners and leaders is I see it more from not so much from the from the molding of clay, but from the chiseling of marble. Like there's
Oh,
this stuff that to
beautiful.
see the right to see the leader that we eventually will be is we got to get it rid of, like you said, avoiding or stop doing, right, like the getting
Mhm.
rid of the stuff that doesn't serve in the present. And that's one thing I had to learn is at a stage in life, I was a wonderfully amazing son of a bitch. Like I was so un, unfortunate for the people who worked with me and for me. I was so aggressive, so driven, and I would break people at this level of excellence, right? And part of it, as I look back, is because I couldn't fully accept myself to be in the process of. And as I've done, there's a part where I've gone back to many of them, and I said, "Sorry, that's all I can do right now. But going through that and realizing that in that journey that 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 probably got me through a phase, but then it no longer served and I held on to it and I kept doing it. right? And so I think that's the thing when we say we have bad habits or all this stuff. No, they're just habits that served for something. It could have been some of the childhoods that people have grown up in. You need as much protection to survive that as as you would. But you've held on to it into a place where you don't need to hold on. You can put it down. And so sometimes it's just putting it down, right?
It was a moment of excellence for me from a leadership perspective. I really appreciate you sharing that because I think it's easy to just we are who we are and not really think about that we became this person for a reason and there are
Mhm.
things that did serve us in one chapter of our lives that
Yep.
just doesn't serve us now. And so
Yep.
it's not necessarily that you were, you're a horrible person or you were less qualified before. It is just a part of that chiseling away and being
Yep.
like, okay, this no longer serves me. And in order for me to achieve more excellence, and this is my next evolution. And so I like that. You found that really
Yep.
nicely.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and sometimes you got to release it to bring in new stuff, right? Like that's
Mhm.
the thing. 'Cause release that because what's at that next level is going to ask us, and coaching, if it's done its job, that's really what it wants to. It wants to kind of honor that past, but then say, okay, here's what maybe is not doesn't look like it's serving anymore, and what's possible for that next level. Because each challenge requires something different, and I think as we grow in businesses, that's okay. If you feel like you're stuck, this a lot of times people think they're stuck because they haven't found the next thing they need or want or skill, right? And kind of like God, that's kind of the language day, isn't it? Leaving it behind. But they're stuck because they're carrying that giant ball through a hole that's this big. It ain't gonna come. You're gonna have to let it go. So
Oh my gosh, true that. Yeah. Sometimes it just get unstuck. Just,
yeah,
just
you
get
know,
unstuck. Just like
and,
just
and, and
avoid that thing.
exactly, and I think sometimes too, I always like giving the visuals to stuff because some people it is so ingrained in us. And you said something too about naming, right? And naming, and a lot of times I'll
Mhm.
tell people to write stuff down because it gets it out of your feelingness. And then you can solve it once your mind has processed, because your mind doesn't know what to do with the feeling of like, I don't know. But if you write it down, it can checklist or solve or work on something that's external of you. And when you give kind of sometimes the visualization to something like that, and that's their problem, and they can identify that problem, they go, oh, I can't just let it go.
It's and the ontology of the visualization is so powerful, right? Because we're just trying to figure out the word to put around, just like I said, like the muscle. And
Yeah.
visualization can be so powerful to help with sometimes we just can't put words around it. Yeah, that's
Yep.
that's cool.
And sometimes that was protection, right? Our body
Mhm.
protected, our mind protected us from putting words around it because it just couldn't deal with it at the time. Well,
Right.
now we're in a different place. So,
Mm.
oh, well, Jodi, I want to thank you so much for your time. This was amazing. Everybody, you got a real dive into the psyche of the leader and really an honest conversation. And one of the things I think to take from this is just this honest conversation needs to happen, whether it's between friends, whether it's between, as business owners, you know, it's tough being at the top because there's not a ton of people to talk to. So find other business owners, find a coach like myself, find someone to have these conversations that are willing to have conversations like this, and it will definitely help your growth. And so, well, Jodi,
Community. Community is so important.
yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, it's just and being present with said community, right?
Yes. Yeah, how you show up with your community. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much. This was delightful to spend time with you and everyone and thank you.
Thank you. Well, it's my pleasure too. And Greatness Garages, we look forward to the next time. And thank you so much. And remember, action is what makes this information all worth it. If you need help figuring out what that action is, go to callwithbrad.com and we'll get some clarity and help you figure out what that should be.